there's been plenty of examples of people who got what they wanted too early and completely wrecked their lives. The apple may look like an apple, but did it have time to germinate? Everything in America is rushed. And so for anybody out there who's trying to hurry up and get there, here's what I say.
Preston Smiles,
motivational coach and speaker who helps people live with purpose and love.
He offers programs like
The Bridge Experience, Man Cave,
and the Abundance Reset to help people break through fears,
grow emotionally, and master the flow of money.
His focus is on personal transformation, emotional intelligence,
and creating abundance in all areas of life.
There's the people who do nothing, the people who do a little bit and retreat, the people who do normal action, and the people who take massive action.
How are you choosing what are your next projects, your next creations, and how do you avoid going like next shiny object syndrome?
Yes, that's a great question.
All right, Preston Smiles, here you are on the Creative Path podcast. Welcome, buddy. It's good to see you.
Thank you, sir. It is good to be seen.
It is, I know that this is going to be a handful, this episode. We haven't seen each other in a long time, and we go way back. So for the audience to know, I was the only white dude in your wedding party.
Yep.
Which is funny. That's why I'm here. I'm a groomsman in the wedding this weekend.
Do you identify as a white dude?
I mean, I'm half.
Yeah.
I'm not even half. So my background, you may not even know this. So half Filipino. My dad's from the Philippines.
Yep.
On my mom's side, where people would say my mom's white, my grandfather is actually 100% Ashkenazi Jew from Ukraine. So I'm 25% Jewish, 50% Filipino, and then the other 25% is what you would probably consider white.
Interesting. Yeah. I wouldn't call you a white dude.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I usually consider myself ethnically ambiguous from my LA acting days.
I hear that. For sure.
Well, one of the things that I have appreciated about you and where I want to start off is that you have always been someone that expresses yourself unapologetically, right? Even just how you dress, the way you talk, you have taken pride in not fitting in. It was a badge of honor for you to go right when everyone else went left. And I'm curious how you relate to that now, because I feel as though what you have built with your different businesses and things has also, it follows a blueprint. Inside of the coaching industry, there is a blueprint for how we kind of build business. And you've done a really great job of building business, while simultaneously you haven't lost the uniqueness of you. And can you speak to that?
Yeah, man. Thank you for the compliment and for the non-compliment. Because it's probably, there's a mix in there. And you're right. First of all, a big part of that thing that you called out came from a wound. Because I was placed in special education with children with schizophrenic children and Asperger's and things of that nature, I made up a story, and that story got sort of lodged in my body that I was other. I was the other kind of person. Everybody else was regular and I was other. And so instead of hiding in the middle to stay safe, I went, cool, I'm other, then I'll show you other. You guys dress like that, I'll dress like this. You guys walk and talk like that, I'll walk and talk like this. And it, at some level, became an FU to the system, to the idea of standardized brains and standardized tests and standardized, this is how a good American talks. This is how a perfect Christian boy looks. This is how mommy's boy should be. And I learned how to put those masks on, but my underlying truth was, fuck that. Like, you tell me I have to go this way, I'll prove to you that I can go this way, and it still exists. For the astrology people out there, you might say, well, you're also like a Leo and you're flamboyant and all those things. All of those things are true. My dad was also an artist, so that helped. I watched him, and he fanned the flames of my creativity instead of trying to squelch it. And I think that's a big piece for most people when it comes to how in tune they are with their own creativity. Was it acceptable in their household? Was it held high or was it held low? And for me, because I watched my dad paint and wear colors, and he had, like, at one point we had 7 BMWs, and he had different color BMWs, and he was such an out there type dude, and my mom was too in some ways. It became an of course for me. It wasn't scary to stand out. Now, to tie that all back into the coaching world, I even now I'm still coming to grips with, you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people have figured it out, and you can just follow that blueprint and put your unique energy, essence inside of that blueprint. And again, I think what I've really been good at is loving my life right where it is. And in doing so, I'm in my prefrontal cortex, which means I can get creative about that love. I think a lot of people have this, like, when I'm there energy, when the poem is done, when the song is done and out and it's on Spotify and X, Y, and Z, when the painting is done, then and I've always been really good at going, done or not done, we're winning. And because of that, there's not as much attachment to what the end result looks like. And because there's not as much attachment to the end result, there's a freedom that people pick up on, and they go, what are you on? Why are you so relaxed when it comes to this?
How do you balance the non-attachment to the result to having really big goals and visions to achieve or create?
I don't balance. What I do is I understand that the personality is limited, and I can set some arbitrary goal to do 5 cartwheels and 12 backflips from here to the camera. But the reality is if I only get 2 in, it's still 2. And it's me that's setting the arbitrary goal, not God. Now, that's a tricky statement, because I also don't believe that God can separate itself. But the point is that for me, especially when it comes to art and business and all of these things, if there's other humans involved, and some of those humans decide they want to consume my art, right? I wrote this new book, Spiritual Millionaire. If a certain amount of people decide they want to consume it, right? There's already, I think we have 2,000 books sold already. Well, that's 2,000 humans. Now, if my goal was 20,000 in 5 seconds, yeah, that's awesome. Yay me, right? But that could be considered a glorified version of a dick swinging contest, right? For me, it's like, what did you sign up for? Did you sign up for the art, or did you sign up for the accolades, or the, like, give me the word for this, the
Reward?
yes, like the
accomplishment, achievement?
Yes, there we go. The achievement of these things. And if I'm going to set these goals, whose goals are they really? A lot of times in my career, I've caught myself watching other people, hearing other people, listening to podcasts, reading certain books, and then going, oh, I should want that. And having to constantly reclaim over and over again, snatch back the part of me that believes I need to do it like X. I was hanging with epic dude, Dan Martell. He flew out here on his private jet, and we had dinner, and I've known him for a long time. And we were talking, and at one point we were like, wait, how old are you? And he was like, 44. And I was like, 44. Now, my brain at some point during that dinner started adding things up, and like, he's got a private jet. I don't have a private jet. He's got big muscles. I don't have big muscles. And then I had to reclaim all of it. Just bring it right back. That's epic that he has a private jet. That's dope that his muscles are big right now. You know what I got that's big? A family. You know what I got that's big right now? Abundance. You know what I got that's big right now? So much love for my person. So I'm not worried about or looking in my neighbor's yard. I just have to keep reclaiming it. So the long and short of it is I don't. I genuinely just play the game that I'm supposed to play because the lights can be out at any point. You know it. We've seen it. We make plans, God laughs, right?
And so I love that you have that mentality of I'm just playing the game, right? And I'm going to play it to the best of my ability and let the chips fall where they may.
Mm-hmm.
But I also know you to be incredibly competitive.
Super
Competitive.
Yes.
Right? Like super competitive. Like talk shit to like an 8-year-old that challenges you to some like Connect Four. Like
Yep.
I will demolish you.
Yes.
And so again, it's not balance, but I'm curious because I look up to, Kobe Bryant,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
And that Mamba mentality of I'm going to crush you.
Yes.
And it's interesting because when you look at Kobe's career, the beginning of his career, he was not liked.
Mm-hmm.
He was not liked. He got into trouble. He got into situations where he really was vilified a lot. And then there was a shift that happened after a Dark Night of the Soul stuff that he went through. And suddenly he was mentoring other people, and he was really focusing on fatherhood, and he became iconic.
Yes.
And so well respected by everyone. And there was a shift that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see him losing the Mamba mentality of I am going to win one more than Shaq. I am going to win every time I step on the court.
Yes.
And yet there was a shift, and it seems like you're in that pocket right now. You're in a pocket of I want to win, and yet I am still going to do it in a way that doesn't make me the villain necessarily. I'm not sacrificing my joy.
That part.
And were you always in that pocket, or did you find your way there?
You know what it is? It's interesting. And it's a part of why I wrote this book, because I'm uniquely positioned to write it. In the sense that I've been the super spiritual guy who does 31 ayahuasca ceremonies and transcendental meditation. And, I'm surfing at the beach and I'm wearing the mala beads and I'm that guy, right? And I've always been really loving and giving. And I've always played to win where I fully chose to be. The wound, if you may, that some people would not be able to see is I haven't played to win because I don't even play in certain areas. So what's happening now is I used to set up a world for myself, which is genius in many ways. I set up a world for myself where I went, okay, they're the other. Those are the popular kids. They have their own masterminds, their own things. They don't invite me to those things. So in essence, F them. I'll create my own environment. And inside of this environment, I will play to win. I will play to crush. I will play to kill. And I will play to support and serve others. Remember, I had the love mob. I had all kinds of stuff. I've been super giving and loving the whole time. The big shift for me was going, why not me? What's the real story under this that has me believing that I can't be with the quote unquote popular kids? And what I sort of sat with is there was an underlying belief that I wasn't worthy of being with them. No, truth be told, I don't even want to be with them, but it was about the part of me that didn't believe I could have what they were having.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm in the conversation of like, I just pulled up and it's like, well, somebody's got to drive the G-Wagon. Why not me? They already decided the G-Wagon is possible for them. That's how they grew up. That was already in their consciousness. They were the high school quarterback. They were the ones that people saw going this way. I was the throwaway kid. I was the dirty little nappy-headed black boy that nobody gave one shit about. So the mountain that I had to climb to be able to go, well, somebody's got to drive the G-Wagon. Why not me? Somebody's got to have the multi-million-dollar house. Why not me? And the answer to that from the wound was exactly where the work was. Right? The game is what imprisons you also points to your freedom. And you can't disown that which you've never owned. So I got to hold that mirror up and go, okay, bro. You are a big fish in your own created pond. And when you're really in the pocket and you understand what God is trying to do through you, you feel and act as an apex predator with heart and compassion. What a beautiful combination. Now, with all of that, how dare you keep it from the masses based on your childhood wound? So let's go find out. And that is the result of the Preston that you may be seeing more of now.
And what was the actual process?
Mm-hmm.
So you hold that mirror up and you go, all right, I'm being radically self-honest and admitting that there's a part of me that hasn't felt worthy of it, or a part that's been afraid to fail, all of these pieces, but now I'm getting after it.
Mm-hmm.
How long ago was that? And then what was step one? Like, what did you do to address that?
So it has been in chapters, but as recent as 6 months ago, right? It keeps unfolding. I'm still in one now. And the first step was deciding that it was possible for me, even if my personality couldn't see the path yet. Just making the decision. Because I tell people all the time, ready, because we say, oh, I'm not ready. Well, ready isn't a feeling, it's a decision. And so the moment you make the decision, readiness occurs in the body. The quantum field opens up and says, game on. Right? So I made the decision internally. Number two, I had to look around at what I was consuming and swimming in and start to cut cords. And one of the most important cords that any human can cut is the second umbilical cord. Because the first one gives us life, the second one holds us back from life. And so I had to go back to the parent wound, the dad wound, the mom wound. What is really happening here? Oh, I have a underdeveloped feminine in some ways, which is why I hyper-masculinize and drive things through a wall if I need to take care of my family. Well, that's beautiful, bro. But that's reptilian brain conscious willing things into existence. And in the scope of to me, by me, through me, as me consciousness, you are playing in the by me space. But you keep teaching people to be a vessel. You keep telling people that the fruit doesn't belong to the tree, the fruit belongs to the ecosystem. You keep saying, use me, spirit, but are you actually available? And so now I'm in the conversation of what does it look like to be available? Going back to it, bro, I shut down like 10 things to write this book. This is quote unquote, watch the quotes here. Everybody listening, I'm doing quotes. This is quote unquote the worst financial year in 10 years. And I am absolutely beasting. Because sometimes you got to take some steps, quote unquote, back to take many forward. Sometimes you have to go so deep into what is not true for you or into what is true that you alienate and separate from things that aren't serving at the time. So I shut down a bunch of programs. I stopped doing a whole bunch of stuff. So there was spaciousness for me to actually honor the muse and that voice within that's saying, this is yours to bring forward. It's fucking awesome.
And so when you identified, because you said two key pieces. First was you got to make a decision. You got to make that decision. How do you make that decision? Mm-hmm. Because there are so many people listening to this right now, and myself included, there's some decisions to make. Mm-hmm. And I go, I think I made that decision. But then there's the, And the way that I've done it in the past for so many years is ceremonies, plant medicine, because you can't hide in those ceremonies. You know, when you're sitting there in ayahuasca and you're like, I'm making this decision. You're like, no, you're not. And you're faced with it. How did you actually make the decision? For people listening to this and maybe they don't do plant medicine, but they say they want that thing, but they haven't really made that decision. How did you make that decision?
Yes. So one of the things I've been teaching for years is something called the intention formula. And it's essentially intention minus the reasons. The reasons are all the bullshit stuff that my ego will come up with after I make the decision. Right? Intention minus reasons. Now I write down each reason. Okay. Shouldn't write the book because you have 2 other programs going right now. Okay. Now you ground it in the opposite direction. So you prove that and I'm preempting right now. Right. So for anybody who has something that they are calling in, I'm doing this beforehand. I'm going, okay, I've been with me for 44 years. I know the dumbass things that are going to come through my brain. Let me write them down. So what's the intention, P? The intention is to write a book called Spiritual Millionaire that serves and supports all the spiritual, creative people who have not built the bridge for receiving and experiencing abundance and money in ginormous ways that are beyond their current understanding. Okay, that's the intention. That's the decision. Okay, now let's go over to the reasons. What are the reasons why you wouldn't actually do that? Why wouldn't you write that book? Oh, you got 4 kids. You just bought a new house. You just spent $700,000 renovating and getting the new house. Oh, but by the way, you bought 5 other houses in the last couple of years too. So your accounts, your cash, your liquid is getting low. You need to focus on money right now over creativity. Hear that, because that was true for me. That's what the ego mind said. That's the reptilian brain trying to come save me. Well, now, because I'm having this not in the thing, but I'm having a prefrontal cortex mind conversation with myself, now I'm writing next to each excuse why it's bullshit and why it's not a fact, but rather a philosophy that my wounded child is trying to hold on to. Okay, so we have intention minus reasons plus, now we're going to plus aligned committed action. Okay, what's aligned committed action? That's massive action. That's scary action. There's 4 levels of action, right? There's the people who do nothing, the people who do a little bit and retreat, the people who do normal action, and the people who take massive action. And what I've come to understand is that when somebody makes a decision, one of the best things you can do right after that decision is to screenshot it in your body by taking an action that is in alignment with that thing. So, okay, what do? I made a list of the top 5 things I could do that would essentially put me in a position where I couldn't turn back.
And that was like shutting down the programs.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Firing certain team members, shutting down programs, making announcements to people I'm in business with that this is no longer going to happen. These are aligned, committed actions. The end of that equation is equals results. Now that doesn't say equals good results, bad results. It just says equals results, right? The result of it was I went into my own beautiful cave and I still made money. I still killed it, right? I'm still going to be a multimillionaire this year, but it's the lowest I've made. But that's not even the metric for me though. The metric for success is when I drop my kids off at school and I say, give daddy a kiss. Do they kiss me? The metric for me for success is when I walk out of my 4-acre house and look at that backyard, do I still notice the butterflies? Do I still connect with the lizard named Leroy who comes out of the bushes and then runs back? Do I still get what's really happening here? And so I've been able to sort of, extract a lot of the stuff that doesn't serve me in order to be the demonstration of what's in the book.
I really love that. And you talked about shutting down certain things in order to be able to really focus. And that takes a lot of courage, actually, when those things are making millions of dollars. And my question is, when I think about your creativity, I don't think about, oh, Preston makes music or he does this, right? But you've created over the years so many different programs and from Man Cave, Kaboom, The Bridge,
Stretch,
Elementum,
22,
Stretch, like
Elementum.
constantly, right? You've constantly created these different programs and things. And so I know that those are deeply a part of your creative expression.
Yeah.
And how do you figure out what to point your attention to? How are you choosing what are your next projects, your next creations, and how do you avoid going like next shiny object syndrome?
Yes. That's a great question. Also, just to help anybody out there as well, the big question is to ask myself as well is what fills all those things up? Because those things are creative, but the what I do on video, what I do on social media is the most creative thing I do that feeds every single one of those programs. And even how I do it. You know, you and I, we could be put in similar categories. People will say, oh, I got invited to a thing recently here in Austin. They wanted me to speak. And they were like, just do some like your poetry. I was like, oh, I don't have that. And they're like, the thing. And I was like, got you. I know what you mean by the thing. It's not poetry though. It could be considered that, but it's never written down ever on anything. And you do. And it's awesome. We have two different ways of entering into that conversation of being used by Spirit. So that's how those things happen. And then for me, going back to the Kobe Bryants and the Tom Brady's and the Dr. Dre's and the Kendrick Lamar's and the Tesla, the Nikolai Teslas and the Steve Jobs, these people, the Oprah Winfrey's, these people, in my opinion, had an internal decision to go pro. And in doing so, it became their life. Right? Now we can say it became their life and therefore they became pro. However we want to put it, it's their life. I don't have an quote unquote off switch to this thing. It is actually what I love doing. And I love honoring what God placed in me. There's something really beautiful. And my next book, I'm going to call it Finding God in the Walmart Bathroom. Because if you can see the face of God anywhere, in anything, then you literally win. And for me, a lot of people are like, oh, how do you stay so consistent? And I'm like, because it's a way of life. It's a calling. It's not, I got to go do this thing on social media to get said X. It's like, I get to go talk to and support and give my art and my creativity to these people who are humans, who have babies and boyfriends and girlfriends and husbands and traumas, and they've been molested and raped as children and bullied when they were 13, and they hate their body or the way their titties sag right now, and there's all this stuff going on in their relationship, and I get to be the one who reaches into their hearts and souls and says, hey, don't forget who you are. That is fucking ridiculously magical, bro. So you see the distinction? Like some people feel like social media is a burden. It's not to me.
Yeah. And what I'll add to that though, is you have created at least 6 or 7 different programs over the years. And many of them, like The Bridge was, I know you remember this. So for people listening to this, Preston Smiles changed my life in a very profound way. And I always give you credit for this because I had just had a spiritual awakening, January 2013. My partner at the time and I were deep student. We became massive students. I took that Mamba mentality and I went, oh, spirituality? I didn't know that this was real. I'm all in and I'm going to be the best. I'm going to be the best spiritual person I can. And that led to us going to a retreat in Costa Rica, met you and Alexi, and you said to me, when I told you what I did, you went, oh, bro, you need to quadruple your prices immediately. And that gave me permission. And then you then said to me, we hung out a few times and you go, I want you to come on the road to Australia and help me facilitate this thing, the bridge experience. And I went, like this is, can I do this? Sure. I'm going to like quit my job, put all my stuff in storage and go to Australia. But that was a leap of faith. And oftentimes all we need is that one person. You just need that one person that not just opens a door, but opens the door because they believe in you.
Yep.
And so that changed everything. We traveled together for a while. We traveled together to all kinds of places.
Correct.
And what I've seen is like now you guys are about to do Australia Bridge again. And what is that? Maybe 10 years later.
Yes.
Right. And so it's come back around, but there was a period where you probably weren't doing it and you paused it, et cetera. I look at, and this is just even a selfish question in some ways, but I know people can relate to this, which is I don't feel I have like a signature program, right? You've seen my journey. We've been friends for a long time, and I launch a brand building program. It's a 6-figure launch. Every business person in the planet's like, yo, just improve the product, launch it again.
Yep.
And I go, no, but it didn't. There was this thing missing here. And then I launched the Artistic Entrepreneur Incubator, which I'm running right now, which another 6-figure launch. And I'm going, is this? Is it? And then I'm like, okay. And I balance the part of me that I know has the shiny object thing, where I can go from, yes, okay, did that. Check, next thing. Check, next thing. And there is a deep actual spiritual and evolutionary development thing to going deep with the thing and following through. And as someone who's created so many different programs over the years, do you have a way of deciding where to put your attention and when to go, I'm relaunching another round of this, or actually I want to do something completely different?
Yes. Yeah, this is a good question. And you asked it before, I just didn't answer it. So I'm going to answer it this time. So one, it's when I'm haunted by it. It's when I can't shake it. It's when it just keeps showing itself and coming back into the space. Two, I'm going to go sort of super macro here. So let's say there's 10 programs, workshops, seminars, things I've created. It might look like these are all different things. But the truth is that each one of these tentacles is connected to the hand, and the hand's connected to the arm, and the arm is connected to the body, and all of it's connected to the same heart. And so for me, how I create is almost like how I grab shoes out of my closet. Right? I literally, and this is, you are good at this, I'm good at this, I don't really actually believe in scarcity when it comes to creativity. So there's no part of me that goes, oh, this might be the last one. It's like, no, you launch the artist thing and you're like, I don't know, I'll get something else. And you can go get something else until the something hits. And here's the thing, all of us have a favorite rapper or singer or group. And I tell you no lies. Yes, their first album hit and it got you, right? Like I used to be super like Incubus fan, right? I didn't like
Maniac.
Yeah, that one as much as I liked Morning View, right? But Incubus, yes, they came out swinging and hit it and got fans, and then they had to go through a journey of maturing their voices and understanding who they are, and then they're in this like surfer mode and they're doing it from Malibu, and it had a vibe that vibed with me at the time. And there's a maturity that occurs for the artists when they're willing to just stay in the arena. I may fight different people. I may go sit in the stands for a little bit and drink some water. I may be, working at the vending machines. Like I can be a lot of things in that arena, but I'm still there. And to me, yes, we are masterful at bridge because we've done it for 10 years. But that translates into the Spiritual Millionaire Academy. There's stuff I do online through a Zoom that people are like, how do you get that much permission? How do you get people to do that when they're in somewhere else in the world? How do you get them to do this? Because all of it translates. It's still connected to the same body. So going back to it, students ask me all the time, I have all these ideas. Which one do I choose? I say that the one that, let's say there's 5. If there's 5 ideas, what are the top 3 that will produce the highest impact and the highest income combined? Well, there's like 2 of them that would do that. Okay, perfect. Now we got 2. We went from 5 to 2. We can go back. We can get the other ones. We'll get them once one of these creates space for those. So for instance, Stretch 22, every time I launched it, I kept about $250,000 cash, mine, right? So for me, it's like, okay, I have Stretch. I want to do this other thing. Like I've been wanting to do an abundance course for 8 years. And for 8 years, I've been putting it off because Stretch and Man Cave produced more money and impact. And they created space for the bigger goal for me, which was to house my mother in a brand new house and to have each of my kids have 2 houses in their name eventually. Not in their name, but in a trust. So, okay, there's the goal of right now money. There's the goal of setting your family up because that's what you believe your job is here to do. And how can we marry those 2? Okay, I will eliminate 4 of these ideas and make sure this one gets off the ground, is fully in the air, we're in cruise control. And at that point, I will get a parachute on and the plane is on autopilot. This is the other piece that everybody needs to hear. I have multi-million-dollar businesses and all that stuff because I don't try to do it myself. I think one of the biggest mistakes artists make is they try to do everything by themselves. Your first hire should be an assistant from Adam's lineage, the Philippines, or Germany, or India, whoever, it doesn't matter. But your first hire should be an assistant because there's menial tasks that you're doing that are taking away from the thing. So I get one idea off the ground, making money, serving me, serving humanity, and like a whole bunch of dope who's that can run it. And then I jump out the plane and I go get another one. That's exactly what happened. I launched Stretch. It made money. I did it multiple times. Then I got to the point where I was like, that's 5 in a row. It's cash money. The customer feels like family. The impact on their lives, they're filling it up without me. Okay, game on. That's working. I can't stop thinking about serving men. I met this dude, Jetty. I'm going to create this thing called Man Cave. I'm going to hire this dude named Jetty to be my second in command. I'm going to be in the trenches of this thing for the first 2. Number 3, I'm out. Now they run it and I just hold and fill it up. Okay, so I did that. I had Stretch, Man Cave running, both same time, over and over again. Bridge underneath all of that. Then I'm like, okay, well, what's next for me? Because the creative person never runs out of creativity. And it's what's haunting me. And I say yes.
And how do you attract the team? How do you track those? Because you were an actor in Los Angeles. I was an actor in Los Angeles. We come from a environment of agents and managers. And so there's always been, for me, a desire to have the like, I got you, I believe in you, etc. And then I had a 10-year relationship with a woman who, like, that was our role for each other. Like bouncing ideas off each other. Hey, you can do this, etc. I had that. And for the last, 7 years, bro, for the most part, it's been me. Really just me. And I've had different people that I've hired at different times. I have a team of 7 right now in various ways, but like, you've done a great job of attracting team so that those things can really run in excellence. And I know that that's a skill. And so can you talk about really attracting the right team?
Yes. It's a few things. One, and I was leading a workshop yesterday an Elementum workshop yesterday, and someone raised their hand asking a question about something pertaining to an enmeshment with her mother, and how she's tried all the things, but her mom just won't stop, and she has her claws in her. And I shared with her that, and this will all tie together, that oftentimes the issue isn't the real issue. The issue is a leadership issue. She hasn't figured out how to finesse and work her mom. Right now, she's still in the angry 13-year-old. It's like, Mom, stop calling. Leave me alone. Okay, well, you're 38. When are we going to graduate out of the angry 13-year-old and use your 38-year-old finesse and consciousness and say, hey, Mama, I love you so much. Don't call me again until next week on Tuesday. I love you. Tell Dad I love him. Give me a kiss. And guess what? You're the best mom that's ever existed. Boom. Hang up on her and block her. Right? So how does that tie into calling in team? I do really well at understanding that the human component of my team. So some people on my team, you could say, oh, P, that's crazy. You hired a C person. But that C person within 6 months has turned into a B minus. And you can easily see that within 1 year, they will be an A-type player in your space. How the heck did you do that? Well, I'm developing them through leadership. My team makes mistakes. It's how I handled them. It's how I talk to them. It's what I understand about their husband who was in the military and is transitioning on, coming back to the house. It's what I understand about their children's soccer game, and I'm aware of them as a human. And because of that, we tend to, the law of reciprocity and the law of circulation says that we tend to want to return back that which we receive. And so if I'm pouring into you, you're my social media guy, but I know your brother's name. I've hired your mother. I've helped you when you're going through a breakup or a breakdown. I've poured into you and spoke and helped you build your own social media business. You didn't have that before me. Now you do. You have all these big time clients that we could name right here. Well, how do you think that person's going to respond when I say, hey, it's midnight, but I need this done? They're like, absolutely, bro. Anything for you. Now, I'm not doing that to manipulate. I actually like people. So that's a helpful piece. But to me, it's developing leaders by understanding that the human on the other side and being able to like bitch slap and kiss at the same time. Mm-hmm. Like I would say, hey, this is unacceptable. No more, guys. This is a big mistake that I don't want in my space anymore. And I understand you're human. And here's where I could have been better. Oh, okay. So he just punched me in the face, but also took responsibility. This feels healthy. Thank you, P. Right? And they want to do better. Also, I incentivize everybody on my team. There is literally no place we can't go. If I make 30 million, they're making a lot. So for them, they're like, yo, the better he does, the more I do. It's all tied in together. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And so then when you've put these people in place, you're still the creative behind it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the program design.
Yes.
When you're designing Man Cave, when you're designing whatever, take me through a bit of the creative process of when you go to design a new program or your book. I don't know if it's the same process for you in a lot of ways or if it's different. Do you have a tried and true method that you go into the creativity with?
Yes. And it is simply stated, I ask myself, what do I want them to hear? What do I want them to absorb? Because I can say a lot of words and I can set up 20 million things for them to do in this 1 week. But if I understand success and success principles, we build over time instead of just bang, Now, because we see it in lottery winners, they get a 30 million in one day, and then they sabotage it within a year because they haven't built the somatic body and the consciousness. They haven't built the capacity to hold it. So I'm going into course creation, understanding that these people do not have the same capacity that I do. Oh, okay. So let's assume they're all beginners, which at some level they are. They've built capacity other places. They haven't built it here. So, okay, I'm making Spiritual Millionaire Academy. What's the first thing I want them to really get? And what do I want them to win at? A lot of people just want to sort of mentally masturbate all their goodness into the space. Look how good I am. Look at the size of my penis. Oh, I'm so good, right? But does that help? Does it really help? And so what I do is I'll go, okay, what do I want them to leave with? What metaphors, analogies, or stories can I tie to that thing? And what single win, two tops, can I get them by helping them, setting them up to win in week 1? So that when they go into week 2, they're in momentum. Okay, now we're in week 2. This is all building on something. So I'll look at the big picture before I even start week 1. The big picture is, what do I want people to say about themselves, about their lives, about this course when they leave out of here? What kind of demonstration do I want to see in these people's faces? And so I sort of begin with the end in mind and then make it as simple as possible, understanding that we can have sex again. It's not just one interaction. A lot of times people want to do every trick and go into the sex metaphor or analogy.
Like, I don't know what you're talking about. We're going to have sex again.
You get what I'm saying? Like dudes will be like, I got to do everything to her because I got to make sure I please her.
Oh, yeah. Got it. Every position I know the first time.
I'm going to fuck you like this. I'm going to like this. And, it's like, bro, she likes you. It's all good. Just get you.
And you see that from a program standpoint, or are you talking about design week to week? All of it.
All of it.
Got it.
All of it. Because
you're not trying to have your program be everything for everyone.
It's not going to be God. It's not. Here's the thing. I explain this to them. Here's another piece for those of you who make programs and stuff. I explain to all my students that this may be the thing before the thing before the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if they really understood that, if they understood that, hey, you're going to have to date 5 more people before you get to your 1. How would you date the 5 if you understood, if you knew that one of these was going to hit?
And I think there's something to be said about the non-attachment coming full circle, because you look at every program basically that I've launched over, they all do well. And on a business standpoint, I've had people that go, just scale that now. Launch it again, scale it. We know the avatar, we know the thing, blah, 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 blah. We'll get better conversion, et cetera. And I resonate with what you said. It's like every time I've done something, I picked up a piece and I can feel for myself, oh, something like there's a thing that's happening here that these pieces are adding into that I can feel. And I'm very excited as I go into that. And I know that a lot of people listening to this want what you're describing. And one of the things that allows me to have a little bit of relaxation around it is I've made money. and so there are people listening to this right now that haven't.
Yes.
And you've just written a book, Spiritual Millionaire. And one of the things that I want to highlight, because I know this about you, is you have a craft. Coaching is a craft for you. You have, from the moment I met you till now, stayed the student and practiced what you preach to the point where your toolkit, your actual skill set and craft around coaching is second to none. And I have that too in certain areas where it's like, yo, I've been doing, people don't realize, why can I step on stage and deliver like I can? I trained like conservatory style acting, did theater performances, for 15 years.
Yes.
And there's so many elements that go into mastery.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you have that mastery, package it.
Mm-hmm.
And so before you were a millionaire, I saw you developing your mastery.
That.
And I see too many people online that are selling from a place of wanting the millions without the mastery.
That part.
And I'm curious, can you speak, when you, in the context of your book, Spiritual Millionaire, where does that fundamental get really freaking good come in? Where's that piece for the people listening that are going, I want that, but they might still, if we were just empirically look at it, be like, yo, you're still a baby in the game of the thing you want to be selling.
That part. Yeah, I do speak to this in the book. And one of the laws is the law of value exchange. And a lot of people don't really get how shitty they are. They just don't. They like think that whatever their thing is, it's more about the marketing of the thing than it is the doing of it and the finding the nuance in it. And so, yes, monetize. Yes, make money. And there's been plenty of examples of people who got what they wanted too early and completely wrecked their lives. And I'm so glad I didn't. For those of you, just to give you context, I started in this space in 2005 when I had a heart condition come up. From 2005 to 2013, I made zero. I made money as a surf instructor. I made money modeling for Wilhelmina and working at Abercrombie and Fitch with my shirt off, but nothing in the coaching space. But that's all I did. That's all I did. I had this story recently. Somebody was asking me about how I met Hal Elrod. And I said, oh, I had been researching, because this is before Instagram. Right? I've been in this space before Instagram, before there was a word called influencer. None of this existed. It was not popular. There was nothing. And I had researched like how to be a better speaker. And this ad came up of this dude named James Malinchek, big money speaker boot camps, going to be in LA at the Marriott LAX. Well, I had like, $24 in my account and the tickets were like $500. So instead of being a victim, I said, I'm going to go to the lobby and meet people. I'm going to just receive the codes of how they operate because these people have something I want. Well, I go and I'm talking and I'm meeting people, not from victim, but like, yo, this is who I am. This is where I am. And talking to a guy, he said, oh, I'll see you inside. And I said, oh, no, man, this is it for me. I got to go. And he's like, what do you mean you got to go? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't actually have a ticket. And he's like, why? And I'm like, because I'm just financially, I'm not in the space yet. And he's like, stop, hold on. And he goes back and he talks to somebody and he comes back and he gives me a scholarship. He says, you're going in. Well, I go in there and they have this contest. They teach how to open a speech. And they say, we're going to take 7 volunteers and whoever wins the competition gets a free ticket to Jonathan Sprinkle's speaker leadership training in Houston, Texas. Well, I put my hand up. They call on me. I go in there. Everybody goes. I do my thing. I win. So now, just because I was willing to be humble enough to just learn from other people, I went from the lobby to inside to winning to a whole nother trip. And my career has taken off because of that. Because I was willing to sit in the trenches and learn and carry people's stuff and like pay my way into people's spaces without trying to like hurry up. It's like our food, right? The apple may look like an apple, but did it have time to germinate? You've been to Tanzania, you've been to Africa. The pineapple in Africa versus the pineapple that we eat in the US is completely different because theirs gets to literally be in the nutrients and grow slowly so that we can actually be healthy. While everything in America is rushed. And so for anybody out there who's trying to hurry up and get there, here's what I say, get a job. Get a job that supports the thing. Because if it's truly handwritten on your soul, this is a lifelong thing you'll be up to. This is not if you're just doing it to make money and like ride the wave of like, oh, drop shipping on YouTube or whatever, and like, oh, I'm figuring out money, cool, go for it. Money's awesome, money's listening. But if you are truly an artist and you believe that this is your calling, treat it as such. Go pro by way of being the dopest, most embodied version of yourself. That's the last thing I'm going to say. We have an apprenticeship for Bridge because we have people taking over for us. And I was talking to the apprentices today and I said, many of you aren't as good as you think you are. And you know how I know that? Because if you were, your calendars would be full. You would have a bunch of coaching clients. So don't get too big for your britches here. Remember that the point of apprenticing is to learn, truly learn. I look at my buddy John Wineland. He spent like 7 to 10 years with David Data making no money. Now look at him. $3, $4, $5 million business. 7 to 10 years? Who's willing to spend 7 to 10 years making no money, learning from someone? Most people right now, not many.
So I'm going to land the plane in a specific way that I like to do, because as part of the Artistic Entrepreneur Incubator program that I lead, I really developed out what I think are kind of 5 steps to taking your passion and then building it out into a lifestyle, right? And step 1 is identifying your core conflict. Because that core conflict, what you talked about, that exercise that you did, that core conflict is the thing that everything you do is you're filtering it through that lens, right? And when you can bring awareness of that particular conflict to every step, it just opens everything up. And I'm curious for you, what that core conflict has been throughout your journey.
Belonging. Belonging. Our executive functioning does not develop until about 12 years old. Well, I was in class with these schizophrenic bipolar children when I was 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, all the way through. So until about 12, we cannot push back on an idea. We're egocentric. Somebody hurts us, somebody molests us, somebody harms us in some form or fashion, because the executive function is not fully developed. I'm operating slower. I cannot understand. You're hurting me because you're hurt. You're putting me in this class because you don't understand my genius. You think there's only one way. I couldn't do that at 7. So the core wound of you don't belong with the normal people made me feel like a burden to people. And then the burden became an out of the way kid who had no needs. But I always had needs. So then the needs get internalized and pushed into spaces that aren't as healthy because we can't beat our biology. And so just all the work I do, I'm helping people. You have to understand something at some level to be able to help people with it. And a lot of coaches don't get this. I love that you asked this question, because that is my big core wound. Do I belong? Am I safe? Do I deserve a seat at the table? And I can look at you right now as this man and go, fuck yes.
And also as someone who, even in the last 6 months, has faced off with that exact wound.
Correct. And it will. That's
Totally.
a part of my dharma.
That's your curriculum.
Correct.
And so after identifying that core conflict, we move into kind of the next stage, which we've been talking a lot about, which is developing your 100% certainty offer. That thing that you just know, like, this is mine to deliver. And we've talked a lot about developing that mastery, et cetera, et cetera. For you, do you feel like you know what that is? Can you articulate it? Is it a feeling, or you can wrap it in an actual statement?
It's what I'm doing right now. And I leave space for the next right now. So this season of my life, it's Spiritual Millionaire Academy and that book. Those are that's like, I'm here to bring that forward because of the spiritual community and how we've been with money and abundance and receiving at levels that will support the collective breakdown and suffering that people are in. Like, why do the ceremonies? Why do the mushrooms? Why have all of this to then go back into our little caves and hide in our silos? Like, nah, bro. It's time for us to, as a spiritual community, to beat our chest and go, us too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a part of why I wrote it.
Okay. And once you've developed that offer, we go into what I call crafting signature content.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just like the consistent content. There's
Mm-hmm.
like these pieces, there's these things, these elements where it's when someone sees that, they go, oh, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I get who Preston is. I get, do you feel as though you bring intentionality to that? Have you found your voice in a very specific way? I've seen you kind of switch up your
Mm-hmm.
content in the last maybe 6 months
Mm-hmm.
or something. So I'm curious how you relate to that aspect of designing the type of content that goes out in the world and does the work of getting someone to fall in love with you.
Yes. So the biggest thing when it comes to that is noticing what's missing. A lot of people just parrot and copy everything else that's occurring. And if we needed information, we could find it on ChatGPT or Google. What we're coming to people about is their stories and their unique understanding or what's missing in these spaces, right? Like, for instance, Joe Dispenza is awesome. He never talks about the nervous system. He never talks about the body that's connected to the mind that we're working on. And you can't you can't outthink how the body feels. So I believe Joe Dispenza is missing a big piece in his work. Well, that's going to potentially cause controversy, and it's going to maybe have somebody go, yeah, I did all of Joe Dispenza, and it's awesome to meditate for 700,000 hours a day, and somebody still molested me.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody still punched me in the face. I still watch my mom get beat down, and that's living in my body. How do I get it out of my body? Right?
And so you bring that element to it, which is funny because Dispenza developed his meditation quantum field stuff from being deeply injured and sitting in a hospital bed and needing to like leave the body. And he's like, my body can't do it right now. So I'm going to leave the body in order to heal the body. And so I can see how he went that route. And as you know, I just did 2 weeks psychosomatic movement in Netherlands. And my journey was one of, wow, I went deep, spiritual, cosmic, had a lot of amazing stuff happen from being in that space. And then depression, PTSD, needing sexual healing from my molestation. Wait a second. I spent all this time leaving my body, and the body is now the anchor that's holding me back in a lot of ways. And I need to come back into the body. And so that's been this journey of back and forth, which is really interesting. And I appreciate that you bring that. And that also is, I think, athletic background and all of those pieces as well. And so 2 more questions. One is, after the signature content is now created, going out, finding your voice in that, it's about building relationship with your audience. And I'm curious, you have been doing this since 2005. I put out my first video in 2013 because you basically forced me to. If you remember, you're like, yo, you need to start putting out content. I said, okay.
Yes.
And the relationship building to the audience, when you've gotten as big as you have, the amount of content you put out, a team that supports, et cetera, but how do you build authentic relationship online?
When I speak, right, it's the idea of don't speak unless spoken through. A lot of people do things because they are just trying to get the machine and the algorithm to work. But there's an internal algorithm that we have to listen to and speak from. And if you are speaking truth, if you're speaking from your heart chakra, if you're speaking from your root and your like the depths of your soul, and you mean it, whether you engage in the comments or not, people are going to go, yo, I mess with him or her. Like, think about Teal Swan. Teal Swan is wildly crazy and awesome because she speaks from the depths of her soul. You can feel the part of her that is living everything she's talking about. That does something to you. Now, I've talked about this, right? There are some influencers who have millions of followers. But if there was a war and you put mine up against theirs, I'd win every time. Because they kind of like that guy. Right? They like the interviews. They'll take it. But they don't feel him. They don't feel his heart. It's a machine. And machines are awesome tools, but they don't never replace the heart. And so as creators, it is our job to remember and stay in the heart in such a way that I know you've done this. I've seen it in your work. I've seen it. You ever walk up to a painting or you go somewhere at Burning Man and you look at this art and you go, oh, you can feel it in your body. You can feel the texture of love that they put into this work. To me, that's more important than anything else. That builds community by itself.
I love that. And that speaks to me, the artist in me, very deeply. And so last question, once you've done all that, it's really time to build the monetization ecosystem, right? And we've talked about how you attract the right team. We've talked about how you pick your projects. But for anyone listening to this that is now looking at, okay, I've done these things. I'm ready to start making money. What is your advice around that?
Oh, yeah. One, buy my book, Spiritual Millionaire, PrestonSmiles.com/book. Two, it's important that we understand that money is the spoon and wealth is the food. A lot of times you get it backwards. You can't eat that money. You can use the money as a tool to transform and transport wealth. We can have 30 million sitting in this room, but if we're in Antarctica and it's freezing out, that money means nothing to us unless we have a lighter and we can burn it for heat. So the money is a byproduct. It's a side effect. Don't worship money. Use money. It's listening. And then start to look at what you desire and offer the emotional, vibrational receiving of it now. Do not wait, because what you want wants you. What you seek is seeking you. And I can tell you right now, most of you are listening to or watching this podcast with a dress, a t-shirt, a sweater, a jacket. You have something on. And that, whatever that is, whatever that material is, it wanted you just as much as you wanted it. The difference is that you had no static on the line. You thought to yourself, oh, I can get a Zara shirt. I can get a Target shirt. I can get I'll just go get one. The materials want to be used. Everything wants to be seen and loved and imbued. So don't treat it, don't deify it or demonize it. Don't make money bad and don't make it your God. Make it like everything else. It is a tool that we use to garden in the grand Garden of Eden called life.
Beautifully said, bro. Thank you for coming on the podcast today. It has been a real honor. We don't see each other that often, but to just see the journey. One last piece that I want to say is that you are one of those people that, having known you since, I guess, 2013, 11 years now, knowing you when you had no money, you didn't really have money, driving your Prius, like doing the thing. But you were always someone that I would bet on. You know what I mean? Like you meet that person, you go, I would bet on that person. I see that. I see greatness in that person. Everyone has the potential for greatness in their own way. But there are these people that you meet where you go, destined. Destined. The word you used once for me was ordained. And like there's this thing. As someone who has seen that in you, and so where you're at now for me is absolutely no surprise. Is there a quality that you can identify, or for people out there going like, this is how you tap into that quality. So when people meet you, they have that same feeling like you can't stop that person.
Super simple. See it in yourself. We have to fall so madly, so deeply in love with us that everything else is extra and a cherry on top.
Perfect answer. Love it. P, let people know how they can find you, find your new book and all that you do, all the different programs, all the different things. Let them know.
I shut down most of them. So it's just prestonsmiles.com/book or at Preston Smiles, wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube, Instagram.
And we will put that stuff in the show notes. Family, thank you so much for being a part of this creative path journey with myself and Mr. Preston Smiles. If this has resonated with you, please share it out. Tag me, tag Preston online. Let us know what the biggest value you got from the podcast was. And as a reminder, always in all ways, you are seen, you are heard, and you are loved. Have a blessed day. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate you taking the time. If you are interested in building a life that you love through the 3 pillars of relationship, business, and creativity, then I encourage you to continue checking out more of my content, including this video, which I really think that you will like.